The political Islam of Iran and Saudi Arabia could never move beyond sectarianism. When those countries were trying to advocate their ideologies abroad, they acted within their religious sects. Their focus never extended beyond petty factionalism concentrated on their denominations. Probably the only exception to the rule was Turkey's Justice and Development Party (AKP) in its early years after coming to power in 2002. Its administrations aspired to combine democratic traditions and institutions with its version of political Islam. The early AKP approach to other Abrahamic religions and Islamic sects both domestically and externally contrasted the other two influential countries of the region, Iran and Saudi Arabia. Fueled by Turkey's European Union accession process, equipped with the secularist period's modern institutions and yet free of the secular elite's problematic relationship with religion, the AKP found itself in virgin territory. Domestically, the new version of political Islam took shrewdly advantage of its unique position. It introduced reforms and passed legislation that recognized and legitimized religious minorities in Turkey. Admittedly, these reforms were limited, but they broke the mold. The reforms and laws that the AKP passed paved the way for religious communities to reacquire, register, and restore some of their properties and cultivated tolerance for a public debate about the Armenian genocide. Internationally, following the launch of Turkey's official EU accession negotiations in October 2005, the AKP took center stage, claiming to be democratic reformers rather than Islamic zealots. A new Muslim country model that combined Islam and democracy was emerging, and it was very different to the previous Iranian or the Saudi Arabian models. Unfortunately, the endeavor did last very long. The AKP was unable to embrace any religious groups other than Sunni Muslims, and its attempt to tame and legitimize the transnational Sunni Islamist organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, ended up with the radicalization of the AKP itself. The Muslim Brotherhood failed to deliver any political change in the Middle East, perhaps with the exception of the affiliated Ennahda party's success in Tunisian elections. But the Muslim Brotherhood construct that Turkey's AKP agreed to re-engineer has wholly collapsed today. Not only has it collapsed, but it has been crushed in most of the Middle East and Turkey that was caught up in its vortex as well. The total failure of the AKP Syria and Iraq policies is exemplified in the imminent attack on Idlib, the last major rebel holdout in Syria. It signals not only the collapse of the AKP's political Islam hypothesis, but also the downfall of Sunni political Islam in the Middle East. It would be naive to expect this collapse and the defeat of Sunni rebel forces in Idlib will be quiet or peaceful. The evidence is frightening. Just as Russia, Iran and their veiled coalition partner China have planned for months, the jihadist extremist groups, except for those under Ankar's control in northern Syria, are concentrated in Idlib. Now the coalition is geared up to destroy them. But there are 3 million civilians in Idlib, half of them displaced from elsewhere in Syria. The battle for Idlib risks creating a huge humanitarian disaster, but it seems as though no one cares. The jihadist extremists who flourished under the shield of Ankara and the West's anti-Assad rhetoric have no one to protect them anymore. Only those who stand to profit are backing them, like the Turkish government. The AKP's only goal in playing the jihadist and refugee card, or voicing its worries about the possibility of a humanitarian disaster in Idlib, is to grab a seat at future Syrian peace talks so it can be a part of rebuilding Syria. All in vain. The West, as it publicly sheds crocodile tears, is cheering the demise of the jihadists in Idlib. The countries these jihadists come from, including Turkey, are just as pleased with this ending as China and Russia. According to experts, 5,000 Uyghurs from China, 3,000 Muslim Russians and quite a few Western Europeans are in Idlib. None of these countries is looking forward to these extremists returning. But the fact on the ground is that these groups' days in Syria are numbered. Their only way out is to move towards Afrin and other Turkish-controlled areas and eventually to Turkey. This creates an enormous security problem for Turkey. However, because of the AKP's incompetence, it looks like Turkey will be importing thousands of jihadists soon. It was not difficult to predict this end in Idlib. The Turkish government, blinded by its arrogance, could not foresee the significance and gravity of the situation in Syria. Now, the president of Turkey is complaining about his friend Putin to his enemy Trump in a Wall Street Journal article. He continues to ignore the instructions he has been handed at the summit with Russia and Iran in Tehran. He is threatening Europe with refugee inflows. Unable to comprehend the gravity of the unprecedented danger he has put Turkey in, he thinks he can still manipulate the situation in his favor. He does not realize the battle in Idlib is not just the end of the Syrian civil war, it is the annihilation of the jihadists. It is the bloody eradication of the latest version of political Islam in the Middle East.